Fear doesn't work in your favor, but the universe does. The problem? You're too afraid to meet it where it's asking you to go. Hey, my beloved family. It is me again, your host, Ron Natalia, here to welcome you to another episode of the Fear Nothing, Feel Everything podcast, where I do my best to foster a safe space for you and your blossoming authenticity. I hope that you've been journeying in love and grace since the last time, and without further ado, let's get into it. It's so interesting that I do these once a week because I genuinely am always kind of nervous sometimes, like every time, until I get into it again, and then I'm like, oh, it's not bad. I actually like doing this. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about fear. I know in the last podcast that I did, I talked about how the universe is always pushing us to be the best version of ourselves. However, when we're afraid of that change, when we're afraid of that transition, it can be hard to step into what's meant for us. And we don't step into what's meant for us until we're shoved there by the universe, because even though the universe is patient and it loves us and it wants the best for us, sometimes we're just stalling our own growth and we're stalling our own evolution, and the universe is like, okay, I need you to show up now, And so as I was writing this episode and as I was coming into birthing this episode, it was so interesting that today with a client of mine, a situation happened where it was directly related to this topic. And so before I get started, I'm going to tell you guys a story. I hadn't seen this client last week because she was going through a lot. She felt very stressed and she said, my body is having like a reaction and I won't be able to show up. And I was okay with that because when I first met her, she has this medical condition that flares up and that can be exacerbated by stress. So we work around that. So I was like, it's fine. I hope you have a wonderful week and I'll hopefully see you next week. This week comes around and at the start of our session, she lets me know that the past 2 weeks have been really strenuous for her and it's felt like hell. And curiously, I was like, why? What's been going on? I hope that you're feeling okay now. But she looked drained, she looked tired, and it kind of looked like she showed up because she made the commitment, which I totally understand. And there's a lot of reasons why people will have a coach or a personal trainer, so to make sure that they show up and hold them accountable, even when things get hard. And so she was like, well, I had a cancer scare. And it was big news for me because I love all of my clients. And I was like, wow, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Has it been alleviated? And she was like, well, they have to do the test again to make sure that I don't have cancer. But they say that it's not. However, even though it's not cancer, I still may have to have surgery in order to remove the growth or the polyps or whatever that could develop into cancer. And so she has this large surgery that's pending. And I, as a coach, want to see or try to steer my not only my mindset in my life, but also my clients' mindset in their life as to what would be the reason that certain things are happening. And sometimes sometimes things happen for a reason, but sometimes there is no reason. But I was curious enough and I asked her, I was like, so what do you think this health scare is telling you? Like, how does it make you feel? What is it pushing you towards within yourself? And her response was immediately, I need to stop treating my body like a trash can. I need to stop treating myself like garbage, because having this scare made me realize that I don't want to die. I want to be healthy. I want to be there for my kid. I want to have a life that I can look back on and be proud of, and I haven't been doing that. I haven't been making choices that nurture me and love me and grow me. And she was like, even though she doesn't have the disease or she doesn't have the cancer and she has to go through this surgery, she says she would have felt less guilty, or less like it was her fault if she knew that she was doing everything in her power for her health and for her well-being. And it was a wake-up call that was introduced by fear that, holy crap, I want to change like my behavior around this part of my life. And so the reason why I thought that was so interesting is because she knows, she's aware of what she needs to do. She knows that she has to eat better, and she knows that when she eats better, it'll alleviate a lot of the pain that she feels in her chronic condition. And I know a lot of people, if you are familiar with illnesses that have to do with inflammation, a lot of the times sugar can exacerbate inflammatory illnesses, but she has an addiction to sugar, and she knows this, and she's like, I know that if I eliminate sugar and I eliminate caffeine, my body will thank me for it, but I just don't like the way that my brain and my emotions feel around that, because I eat my feelings. So without the sugar, emotionally, I won't be able to fully regulate myself. And then my brain functions well on caffeine, and I get to do all these things. She basically said it's the devil that she knows. Like, she knows the pain that comes with her current decisions. She knows that her current diet inflames her, puts her in pain, messes up with her regulation in terms of her digestion, but she can function this way. The unknown is the pain of not having that sugar fix, the pain of not having her caffeine, or the hardship or the stress that comes with not having her caffeine. That's what she doesn't know. And every time she's tried it in the past, the initial struggle scared her away from going through that pain, even though she says she knows that if she were to eliminate these things and go through that hardship, she would have a better life on the other side. But again, it's the pain that she's familiar with in comparison to the pain that's new, the pain that's unknown, the pain that's filled with uncertainty and introduces fear into her life in a different way. And so I just thought that was such an interesting segue, or an interesting story to have happened the day that I was going to make this episode. And in this episode, we are going to talk about fear and the role that it plays in our lives, and how the universe is always on our side, and not allowing fear to deter us or pull us away from our destiny, which is health, happiness, prosperity. You are made for great things. No matter what you've been told before, no matter what your current beliefs are, you are made for growth. You are made for enjoyment. Life is to be enjoyed and to be loved. And whatever is holding you back from that is not meant for you. So, as I was saying with my client's story, we know that fear keeps you stuck in the familiar, while the universe is pushing you towards something bigger, your true potential. Fear tricks us into staying in situations, mindsets, or patterns that don't serve us, while the universe always has our back, guiding us towards growth and fulfillment. Fear is the mind's way of protecting us from perceived danger, but it often prevents us from recognizing opportunities. The universe, on the other hand, represents infinite possibility, guiding you to what aligns with your highest good. So then, how can we step past fear and align with the universe? Firstly, I would say acknowledge the fear. Recognize when fear is keeping you small. Name it and be aware of how it's holding you back. A lot of the times I say with my clients, acknowledgement or awareness is half the battle won. However, it's only half the battle. So now you have to take small steps, and these small steps are meant to build trust. So start with manageable actions that show trust in the process. Small shifts in your mindset or behavior that can build your confidence in you and the universe. Notice how I mentioned, by the way, that we're stepping past fear and not eliminating it. It's because fear is always going to be there, but your trust in the universe and your trust in yourself, as well as your desire for better, for more, and for a deeper connection with your highest self, has to be stronger than that fear. That's going to bring me to our next action step, which is embracing uncertainty. Understand that the unknown is where growth happens. Instead of fearing it, lean into it with curiosity. Know that even though you don't know what's going to happen, it is for your greatest good. And regardless of what happens, your foundation is still intact. Who you are is still intact. And even though you don't know everything, you know that you can trust yourself and you can trust in the universe. Like, have faith, right? And then lastly, you want to stay connected to your intuition. The universe often communicates with us through our gut feelings or the feelings that we have within our body and our soul. And when fear clouds our judgment, we want to make sure to return to what feels true to us and what we know in our heart is right. By meeting the universe where it's asking you to go, you begin to shift from surviving to thriving. When you push through your fear, you open yourself to new opportunities, new relationships, and new experiences that have always been meant for you, but you were just too afraid to fully step into them. But what if we could reframe your fear entirely and turn it into fuel for your journey instead of something that holds you back? What if fear wasn't something to overcome, but a guide pointing you towards your greatest breakthroughs? And I spoke about this a little bit in episode 1, or where I was speaking about imposter syndrome and acknowledging the things we're afraid of as a hotspot or seeing it as a beacon of light, shining on where we need to focus in order to energetically shift, grow, or change. With that in mind, we have to understand that fear doesn't have to be an obstacle. It can actually serve as a compass, pointing you towards the very things that will help you grow. Fear is often a sign that something important is at stake. It can actually signal that we're about to step into a new level of growth or opportunity. And it's okay to be afraid. You've never been here before or experienced all that is to come with this level up. So then you might be asking, how can you reframe your fear so that it works for you rather than against you? And the first thing that you're going to want to do is identify the source of your fear. What are you truly afraid of? Often the fear points to something valuable. So then, with knowing that it's something valuable that's on the line or that's at stake, you have to then shift your perspective. Instead of thinking, I'm afraid I can't do this, try thinking, I'm afraid because this matters to me and I'm ready to rise to the challenge. I want to be challenged. Think to yourself, and for me, I found that mantras work. So find a mantra you can tell yourself around this experience that gets you out of your fear and into action. So for example, being scared to apply for a higher position at work, being scared to speak publicly, being afraid of being seen. For the one where you're afraid to apply for a higher position at work, instead of saying, I'm afraid that I won't be able to do this job, you say, I'm passionate about what I do and I'm going to learn what I need to know in order to fill this position, even if I don't know everything right now. Use your fear as fuel. Let fear energize you. Every time it shows up, see it as a reminder that you're pushing your boundaries and stepping closer to your potential. And then lastly, I will say, practice gratitude for your fear. Thank your fear for protecting you, but remind yourself that you are capable of moving through it. Understand that fear as an emotion has good intentions. It's all about self-preservation. But for you to align with what's best for you and for you to have what you are meant to have, you have to push forward. And when you learn to reframe your fear, you unlock a powerful source of energy and motivation. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you become empowered by it, using it as a tool for growth. Now, I know you might be thinking, but what if there's still something blocking your progress or stopping you from reframing your fear? Like, none of this makes sense to you, it's not going to work. And sometimes it's not just our fear, it's also the stories that we tell ourselves. These internal narratives and beliefs form a strong foundation for our fear, and the internal dialogue of I'm not good enough or I can't succeed are often what hold us back even more than fear itself. These stories can be stories that we began to believe in our childhood, and we all carry stories we've been telling ourselves for years, often without realizing how much they shape our reality. These stories create invisible barriers that limit our growth, limit our success, and overall limit our happiness. There is an internal narrative in your head that reinforces your beliefs about who you are and what you're capable of. And if those beliefs are negative, then they become self-fulfilling prophecies. So then you might be thinking, how can I break free from limiting beliefs and start telling myself a more empowering, a more empowering narrative? And the first thing is, I'll keep it basic because this is very deep, but the first thing that I'll say that may help is identifying the story and understand what are your reoccurring beliefs and how are they holding you back? What are they about? Get very clear on the story that you're telling yourself. And then the second step that you're going to want to do is question if it's true. Ask yourself, is this story really true? Is there evidence that this story has existed in my real life for me? Like, where did it come from? Often you can find that it's rooted in external past experiences or opinions of other people or things that you've seen in other people that no longer serve you. So once you see that it's no longer serving you, you want to rewrite the narrative and replace these limiting beliefs with ones that reflect your true potential. For example, shifting from I'm not enough to I am worthy and capable of growth. You see how it doesn't even have to be based on a thing that validates it or adds value to the present. So it's not like for someone saying like I'm not enough, it's kind of like you're not saying like, oh, I'll be enough when I do this thing. It's like, no, I am worthy now. I deserve this now. Because I exist, I deserve love now. Because I exist, I deserve comfort and safety now. So it shifts away from limiting beliefs that don't serve you and kind of starts to tell you a narrative that proves true to your life right now, that you can see is true, and that's not overbearing with the expectation of being a certain way. We're gonna wait for the plane. And then once you begin to start telling yourself something that's true for you and that's new and that replaces that old limiting story, you want to affirm the new story. Reinforce this new narrative daily through affirmations, actions, and decisions that align with the person you're becoming. Build that trust by aligning with the things that you're saying and the things that you're writing. When you rewrite your internal narrative, you start living in alignment with your true potential. And you'll find yourself taking action from a place of confidence and self-worth and breaking free from old patterns that once held you back. So you have to now live in alignment with the things that you're saying. And the more you do something, it's almost like a habit. The more you do it, the more it starts to take shape and reframe your entire life. And by reframing your fear and rewriting your internal story, you become unstoppable. No longer held back by fear or old beliefs, you step fully into your power. The universe is constantly aligning things in your favor. And if you apply all of these concepts to your life, you'll be ready to meet it there. I hope that this episode resonated with you, and if you found it helpful or useful, please let me know. And I'm always available to answer questions in the comments. I will say, take notes. I am very big on writing. I'm very big on journaling. A lot of the times nothing made sense to me, or it was hard to stick to something if it wasn't in a way that felt tangible for me. So writing things down. If you're not big on writing for journaling, start to voice record journaling. But having a record of how you're trying to shape your life and change your life, and then moving forward with that intention and having something to look back on to see how far you've come can be really helpful in your journey to grow and reshape your life and reframe your fear. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, maybe one day it will. Until next time, I hope that you continue to journey in love and grace. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.